Don't overcomplicate it, bro. Just
I don't know
take
what
it
you're
off
talking about.
There you go. Go straight out. Welcome back to Baker Rebuilds, guys. Today we're going to be putting in some electronic gauges. We're going to do air-fuel ratio, boost pressure, and oil pressure. So this might be a two-part or multi-part series. We're just going to have to see how it goes. But stay tuned and check it out.
I get it now. I was like, why does it matter
You're like
what
killing
I
me.
do?
Close your eyes.
Remember, you just gotta get off your throttle body and then pull off of that hose. Probably pretty much as you pull that off, I'll like do the intro right after that piece moves across the screen.
It's hot.
Oh, fair enough. You want some gloves?
No, I'm good.
Yeah, if you'd pull it like straight towards the front of the car out of the engine bay when you get it off, that'd be fantastic. So right now we've moved the kickboard trim so that we can get up under the carpet, and we're trying to expose an area where we can get through the firewall, which should be right there, I believe. And that way we can pass through our power wires and anything needed for our sensors. We can also probably ground somewhere here locally. It's a good idea to use a common ground. So what that means for all three of our gauges, we're going to run the grounds together and unite them on a single ground point. That's best practices anytime you're doing electrical. Right now, Josh is lifting the car so that we can get a view at the firewall down underneath.
So we can
trying to access it from the top is generally not doable. Quick trip to the parts store. We ended up picking up these AFR fuses. The way that these work is you can plug them into one of your fuse spots inside the car in the engine bay. And then where the spot that the wire lines up with, the top spot, is where you can put the fuse that you removed in order to add this. And then you can add an additional fuse that has the appropriate amperage for what you're adding. So where we're adding gauges, we'll have to look in the instructions or look them up online to see how much they're drawing and account for that to add these fuses. But this will give them direct accessory power when the key powers on, and it'll be a nice solution for 12-volt power supply. We also picked up some shrink wrap. We're going to use this for our ends that we terminate, like the ground wire and pretty much just the ground wire. The ground wire, and then where we connect to on the AFR fuses, we'll use a little bit of shrink wrap. And then, assuming we have enough, which there's 8 feet here, we'll probably shrink wrap all three together so that it's nice and ran clean. Same with the ground wires. We'll do a common ground.
Toy.
Shrink wrap them all together, real tight. We went with a nice beefy 12 gauge for our ground wire. That should be plenty big.
Quite the kick on that.
And then we went with the smaller shotgun size. We went with a 16 gauge for the power wire so that we can run power. So let's get these things powered up. So right now we're just setting them in the car with the gauges in the pillar pod, a pillar pod right there, so that we can kind of see what kind of visuals are preferred, which gauge is most noticeable, easiest to pay attention to, the best spot for a given gauge. So what are you thinking, Josh?
Just looking, just out of like peripherals and kind of glancing over, middle one's definitely the most, eye-catching, I guess. So we're gonna go boost here. The next one is this bottom one. So we're gonna go air fuel. And then this one up here is the oil pressure, which is probably the least noticeable out of the three.
Gotcha. All right, well, let's get those AFR fuses in the bottom and get it wired up. So now with the gauges in here, I'm gonna undo the zip ties and start leading my power wires so that I can get a good idea of how much power wire to pull and run it from the A pillar down to the ATA fuses that we're putting on the inside of this 2006 WRX. That cord, as you can see, has about 18 inches of lead length. So does that one. All of these might have about 18 inches of lead length. Oh, that wasn't plugged in all the way. That's a problem. But 18 inches won't quite get us all the way down to those ATA fuses.
Also what she said.
Bruh. So we're gonna have to add some more leads to get the power down to where we need it. All right, this should be our sensor for the boost gauge. So we're thinking
Should be.
it should be. It should be, the likely is. So we're gonna use a self-tapper and self-tap it and mount it on this bracket right here with the air port facing up. And then we can run a hose from the top of that air port over to our recirculation. We'll tee off of this hose line right here so that we can get the reading.
We got airplanes and golf courses in here.
And then we'll shut up, bro. This is already hard enough.
Airports and teeing off.
And then we'll run our power and our ground line inside the car through the Firewall port that's underneath the brake booster. Gently. Perfect.
Is that the way you want the hose facing?
It's as good as it's gonna get because we're butted up against this right here. So we'll come off, wrap around and over. It's just fine.
Okay. It's up to that.
Oh,
I get what's going on.
No, you don't.
Do I need to go grab that clear hose?
All right. This that came with our kit is an inline air filter. So this stuff is super tedious. Just take your time, do it right, have a good buddy help you, and in no time you're gonna have gauges working. But until then, so now in order to wire up our boost gauge sensor, I'm cutting a power lead that we can run in through the Firewall to our ATA fuses, and I'll be running a ground wire also to line up with our common ground and ground everything on the same point.
Yummy.
I'm just using some old wire strippers that I've had forever, but these have labels for trying to work here. These have labels for what gauge wire you can strip with it, and then they have color markings for crimping your butt end connectors. So I find them pretty useful.
Okay. See how easy that is?
All right then.
It ain't going over these blue things.
Okay, that's fine. Go right up to them. To help these wires stay together and give them a little bit of protection, since they are in the engine bay and they're running to about the same location, we're gonna use some shrink tape, shrink wrap stuff, heat shrink. We're gonna use some heat shrink, and the way this stuff works is you just apply some heat to it with a lighter or a heat gun.
You get some massive shrinkage.
And it shrinks. Now that we've got our sensor hooked up, we've got our wires running down that we managed nicely into some heat shrink. We've drilled an 1/8 inch hole into our Firewall plug so that we can pass through that and still stay pretty weatherproof. I'm gonna pass it through this, put the plug back in, and move to the inside of the car. All right, we've made it in through the Firewall. We've got our wires right here, with our fuses right here. Right there is where we came in through the Firewall. It's pretty much right in front of the clutch and brake pedal. And to see that, we had to pull our carpet back a little bit. That's our steering column coming through the Firewall towards the driver's side wheel on the Firewall. That's our grommet location that we went through, and it's right underneath the brake booster on the driver side. Difficult to find and access, but a pretty clean pass-through. Got our top mount intercooler back in. You can see our little T-section right here with the uncut factory hose coming up, fit onto the recirculator, and then bridged over through our inline air filter into our sensor, which is mounted nice and sturdy, not on the motor. Apparently, I heard from the good old Schmedia that if you put sensors on the motor, generally due to heat and the amount of vibration, it kills sensors. So try to avoid the motor at all costs. All right, we ran one side with double-sided tape here because in test fitting, we realized that this side lined up pretty flush with our A-pillar cover. So we're gonna tack that one down first, and then using the heat gun, we're gonna try and mold the edges to fit a little bit and close the gap that's on the underside, because this is just a universal gauge pod. And then the other thing that we did was we put everything in the car and we faced our gauges a little bit so that they will be facing the correct direction, because the turn-on collar that came with two of the gauges didn't fit in there at all, so we couldn't use that. And then this bracket that you're supposed to bolt on the back, this one is the boost gauge. You bolt it on the back and that's how it retains this boost gauge. It also didn't fit. So none of our securing options that came with the kits fit. So we faced them, made sure that they're gonna look good when we're done, and we're gonna use a little bit of hot glue from the glue gun, just right on the bottom edge, and make sure that they stay in place and in the correct clock. We just ran a nice little bead right in the bottom of each of our corners, gauge to cluster, pod, whatever you call this thing. So we ended up drilling a hole in our A-arm pillar cover, so that we could pass the wires through as clean as possible. Now if you can see our gap here, that's what we're talking about. We tried applying a little bit of heat to close it up, but this thing's not gonna move at all for us, not without damaging it, so we're not gonna do that. We have a zip tie for the moment holding it, and it's a little gappy on either end, but this is a universal piece. So we're gonna, for now, run a little bit of hot glue up underneath so that we can get it secured for today. Then we can remove the zip tie, and then Josh might 3D print a bar to go in here that is the right thickness to use the double-sided tape on either side of that bar and close this gap up so you can't see exposed wires or anything like that. Josh here has been working on the ATA fuses.
2 in.
With our A-pillar out, we should be able to pass the cables right down there. All right, we've got the gauge cluster in here. We're going to use light and a wire hanger to fish our 3 powers and our common ground down through. We're still not entirely certain what we need to do with these green wires just yet, or the white wires or the orange wire coming off the boost gauge, but we're kind of figuring out as we go. We just kind of want to get a test out of the way. So we're going to get power and ground connected and see if our gauges will turn on. We've got them wired up. We don't have sensors just yet. We do have the boost gauge sensor, but we're not entirely sure if that works just yet. But We have power and ground ran and fished down through, so we're gonna go for a test start, or a test accessory on. Let's see.
What happened to
We
the
lost.
boost one?
We don't have a boost gauge now. 2 are on. All right, we're gonna check our ATA fuses and we'll be right back. So we moved the boost gauge from the illumination fuse section down to the de-icer, but now it's constantly on, even when the car is off. So we're gonna have to find another position that only turns on when accessory on.
Okay, well it didn't turn on.
Take 4, let's go. Woo! We might have it that time. There we go, now cut it off. Hey, that's what we want.
See.
Now we're just gonna clip our A-pillar cover back on with the nice gauges in there, and part 2 will be sensors.
I'm the girl that they don't talk about. Quiet with a big mouth. Listen for the doubt, then call it. Make you out for what you say to me. Look at every single date. If you got what I need, then oh, I'll take you on like a big deal.
Also, don't forget to put your trim piece back and your carpet back and clean up the entire host of tools. Okay, bye.